Hi guys! I wanted to share today a little bit about what I think is the best medium format camera. Not only for beginners, but also for basically anybody. I just think it's the best camera for medium format film. And I want to talk about why. And also, you guys really liked the video I made, honestly, like a year and a half ago at this point, about the Pentax Spotmatic and why I think that that's the best camera for 35mm film, if you're starting to get into that. And so I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts in the same way about medium format. So yeah, this video is going to be about the MAMIYA645. I have the 1000S version, which I guess came out in the 1970s. So very similar to the Pentax Spotmatic. So maybe it's just timing wise that I really like the cameras that came out around that time. I don't really know. Just a little bit about this camera. It's medium format 645. That means the negative is, it's 120 film. Medium format film, and it's 6x4.5, which I think is actually a very nice aspect ratio. It also gives you about 15, sometimes 16 shots per roll, so it's not that bad. I actually recently shot with an RB67, and having so few shots on one roll of film is kind of really stressful, especially because it's pretty expensive to get it developed. So yeah, having like 15, 16 shots per roll is actually really nice. It makes you feel like you actually get something out of your roll. So when it came out in the 70s, apparently it was meant for professional photographers, but was also a somewhat affordable option, which I think is a good combination for using them 50 years later. So I got this camera basically as an impulse buy. I can't even remember what I was doing, but I got it from a place in Atlanta, and I really was not intending to buy a camera that day, but I'd been wanting to get a medium format camera, but like really didn't know what to look for. And so I went to the photo spot in Atlanta for something totally different, and then he was just taking photos of this one to put on the website, and I think I thought about it for maybe like 20 minutes or so, and really just because I didn't really know much about this camera, and just eventually ended up just buying it. It wasn't super expensive for such a massive camera. I think I ended up paying like $750 for the body and the lens. That was 2 or 3 years ago, so I'm not really sure what the pricing is like now, but I think it's still a fairly affordable option comparatively. So yes, it was basically the camera found me. I did not research this camera at all, besides like the 20 minutes of Googling that I did in the store. I ended up shooting it a lot, specifically during weddings. It's not super heavy, like it's big, of course, but it's not super heavy. Like I can hold it with one hand, I can, it's not extremely bulky. It's not like a huge hassle to take with you. And so for weddings, it was actually kind of nice. Once again, comparing to the RB67, I can actually carry this, whereas the RB67, I have to put down every once in a while. I really liked that it was totally mechanical. So it does use a battery for the light meter, but I actually don't use a light meter with it. So it's very mechanical, feels like it's very well made. This is the all metal version. I think there's also a more plasticky version of the MAMIYA645, but I got the one with the metal, which is really nice. And for the lens, it's a 2.8 lens, 80mm. I'm not really sure what that translates to in 35, but I just know that I like this lens and I like shooting with it. But once again, it's just the one that came with the camera that found me. So I'm definitely open to trying some other lenses with this at some point, but I just haven't felt the need to. The way it works is pretty straightforward once you know how medium format works, but I definitely had to Google it a couple of times of how exactly to load this specific camera, and I just followed like a step-by-step instruction on how to load film properly. But once you do it once, it's actually fairly fast and fairly straightforward, so it's not a huge learning curve. And then shooting with it also, if you are used to this type of viewfinder and focusing, like manual focusing, I think it will be quite easy to get the hang of shooting with it. Obviously it's like a little more awkward because you don't have the grip. You can actually add the grip, I just haven't done that yet. You can look through it and focus manually, and it's not a fast shooting experience, but it's definitely I like the process of shooting with this camera a lot. So yeah, I've had it for like 2 years, but sometime last year it actually stopped working, which is kind of sad. It just kind of jammed up, like the winder wouldn't continue going. and I wasn't really sure what was wrong with it, so I brought it somewhere to get fixed. And unfortunately, that's when we went to Europe this past year. Or not unfortunately, but timing wise it broke shortly before we went on like a big 3-month trip to Europe and Asia. And so this camera actually didn't come with us. We instead took the MAMIYA6, which I'm also going to make a video about, but I don't really like that one as much. And so in retrospect, I don't think it would have been fun to carry this around just because it is kind of heavy. But in retrospect, I kind of wish we had this camera for that trip instead of the MAMIYA6, just because I've never really gotten around to loving the MAMIYA6. I will talk about that in a different video, I think. But yeah, so we actually dropped it off at a repair place before we were to Europe and then picked it back up 3 or 4 months later. And we actually picked it up on the way when we were moving from Georgia to New York City in the fall and didn't really test it. And so when we picked it up from the repair shop, we didn't really test it immediately. But maybe like a couple weeks later or so, I actually started like shooting with it and it just locked up again. And that was kind of upsetting because it was kind of expensive to get it fixed, but then I also kind of like waited too long to complain about it. So I was just not in the area anymore, so I just didn't want to be mean. So the camera just kind of sat around for a while. I didn't really think much about it. I was actually just very busy like mentally moving to New York City, finding a job, starting a job, finding an apartment. Just all of those things are very time consuming, so the camera just kind of sat around. Also, I guess announcement, I am like 9 months pregnant, so that was also kind of taking up some energy. But then I got this spark of inspiration at the beginning of the summer to just fork out the money again and just go to a different repair place and see if I can get it fixed, or if not, if I can sell it. But all of a sudden I was just like kind of overcome with that I want this camera to be fixed. So I got a CLA, like a cleaning or whatever they do to kind of make this camera brand new. Obviously not brand new, but just make it work like brand new. I got it back a couple of weeks later, and since then it's been working perfectly fine, and I actually had a great time over the summer shooting with this camera. I don't really want to talk too much about like the technical capabilities about this camera because I frankly just don't know very much about them. I know that the 1000S means that there's a shutter speed of up to 1,000 of a second. Yes. I personally don't really use that very often just because I feel like I'm never in that bright of a sunlight. For me, it's really about the shooting experience and about how the image quality looks. I think the image quality of this is so much better than 35mm. Obviously 35mm has so many advantages and I really love shooting with that, but something about portrait specifically with this camera is just so much more detailed, and the colors, I don't know what really affects colors, but I feel like the colors and depth that this camera produces are I just like them so much. I feel like on every roll I'm just kind of surprised at how much I like some of the images. You can do multiple exposures, which I think is a really cool tool that you can play around with. I definitely want to do that more. I actually want to make like an entire roll of just double exposures, or like just overlapping exposures. So that's definitely something I want to do sometime soon. And it just feels super sturdy. I still don't really know what happened of like why it got stuck, but it hasn't happened since, so like knock on wood that doesn't happen again. But it really seems like that cleaning that they did really helped a lot. It really doesn't have any other issues anymore, and so I'm planning to shoot a lot with this coming up. I also want to really try doing positive film, Ektachrome, I guess. Yeah, Ektachrome. I really want to shoot Ektachrome with this and just kind of use this as my everyday kind of camera. I also kind of want to use this a lot for when the baby's here to take photos, just because I just feel like the quality of images is so good. Actually, for work, we did a bunch of printing. I think it's like 17 by 22 inch print of one of the photos I took at Central Park. And the quality of that print, it's just amazing. And the scan wasn't even that huge. I got like the medium expensive scan. It's not even like the biggest scan possible, but the quality and also the colors of that print really makes me think that all I want to do is photograph with this camera and then get things printed. I don't know what I'm going to do with all of these prints, but it's just so satisfying to see those images so clearly in print. So definitely kind of made me consider that I want to do that a lot more often and just make more of an effort to get things printed, especially with photos that I shot with this. So yeah, I really hope that was informative, and maybe if you were looking for a medium format camera, or maybe if you weren't and this video just found you somehow, might be a sign that you need to look into medium format film. This machine has brought me so much joy, and I think it's going to continue bringing me a lot of joy, and I just really wanted to share that with people. Also, thank you so much for everybody that subscribed. A lot of people came from the Pentax Spotmatic video, and I just really appreciate everybody's comments. I love reading everybody's stories about their cameras and their experiences with their cameras. And I just want to, I don't really know what I want, but I do want to just share my enthusiasm for going out there and taking photos. I also want to remind myself that I really enjoy going out there and taking photos, so that I actually start doing that more. So we got to 1,000, and that was my goal, to really start putting a lot more effort into making these videos. So wish me luck, and let me know what other videos you might want to see. I have a few more cameras that I want to review. For example, the Nikonos 5, which is an underwater camera, but I just haven't really had a good chance to show underwater photos or to make underwater photos. So I'm not really sure how to go about that, but that would be a really cool camera to show. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and for your support and your nice comments. And I hope you have a really nice day, a really nice week. Bye.